Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to the Football Diary podcast, now part, of course, of the Sports Social Audio Podcast Network. I'm with Myles and Dave today to rejoice at the return of Premier League football after the international break, and some fantastic games to talk through as well, including a historic win for Forest at Anfield, a much-needed win for Erik ten Hag, and a thrilling Villa comeback over sorry Everton. But I think we'll start at Anfield for no particular reason. We're not taking any glee out of Liverpool losing, are we? But Nottingham Forest 1, Liverpool 0. A huge result. Forest now up to 7th and their first win at Anfield since 1969. It's Slot's first defeat, of course. First goal conceded for Liverpool this season. So is the honeymoon over is the question. But before we talk about Liverpool, let's look at the first half of the game first of all, Myles, because Forest defended quite astutely, didn't they? Kept Liverpool at arm's length. They were a little bit wasteful, you have to say. But that kind of laid the foundation for the second half and Forest playing their game, didn't it? Them defending so resolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see what an impact Milenkovic is having as a sign-in. Murillo obviously was superb last season. It's continued where he left off. And the fullbacks really contain Liverpool's wingers, which I think would have been an area that previously Liverpool would have thought they could target. I mean, I've seen Moreno for Villa. He's an excellent fullback, but he's very, very attacking. So you'd think that would leave quite a lot of space in behind for Salah to exploit. And actually, both fullbacks held their discipline so well and kept their wingers kind of on a string. There was one moment Diaz got through in the first half. But other than that, really, it felt like Forest were ready to kind of get themselves in the way of everything. They pushed that line deep and stayed together really, really well. And you're right, that was the platform to go on it and kind of take it late on, wasn't it?
Yeah, Forest, I mean, they did hold firm, and I think in the first half it was pretty much all Liverpool, and they needed to hold firm, really. And they were a little bit wasteful. I think Luis Diaz hit the post, didn't he? Probably should have scored. And Matt Sells, on the whole, had a decent first half, but he could have spilled it, couldn't he, Dave, and let it all go, despite all that hard work. But 34 touches for Liverpool in the opposition box, only 5 for Forest. But it was that clinical edge that made it count for Forest in the second half, wasn't it? They rode the luck a bit, but was this kind of the epitome, Dave, of Forest playing to their strengths?
I definitely think so. I think I agree with Myles. I think of Milenkovic coming in, I don't think it's much of a coincidence that defence seems to be a little bit tighter than it was last season when they were really struggling. I think a lot of fans will probably be raised. There'll be a lot of raised eyebrows at this result and thinking, the Forest fans, I think, before this game would have thought if we can get a clean sheet here, that I don't think anyone would have expected that, let alone a win. So I think they've come on leaps and bounds, and obviously undefeated in the league so far.
Yeah,
in the first 4 games, I think they're doing really well. And if you look at a couple of their additions they brought in, I think Anderson from Newcastle, and I think Ward-Prowse is actually a really, really clever signing. And if you looked at a couple of their moves in this particular game, if you look how quicker, they look to be moving the ball quicker for me. If you looked at that move where I think Elanga skied it, where that was breathtaking football. I thought
it was fantastic.
The way they just were able to pass the ball so quickly, and I just think that's probably more what I think Nuno probably had in mind last season. But we're also all of a sudden starting to see it come together a little bit better, and it's great to see Hudson-Odoi. Could he be pushing for the England squad? Because that's the sort of player that we all thought he would, that kind of level that he could get to.
Yeah, I think with Hudson-Odoi, he's got that kind of finish, especially in his locker. He's done it many times, hasn't he? And it was a beautiful finish. And like you say, the passing in the final third, Dave, for that goal was superb. And I think a few of the chances they had, like you said, Elanga could have probably scored a couple, couldn't he? He hit one straight at the keeper, skied one. And that's breaking at speed, I think, like you say, is the Nuno sort of trademark. I think that's what he's aiming for. But it's a dangerous game, isn't it, Myles, to kind of sit deep and defend for large parts, hoping to hold firm and then to attack at pace. But again, that's the archetypal kind of Forest model at the minute. And when it works, it's pretty impressive to watch.
Yeah, I think there will have been a lot of eyebrows raised at the idea that Hudson-Odoi and Elanga started this game on the bench because they're 2 incredibly talented players and they give Forest so much going forward. But coming on at that point in the game, sort of about an hour in, when Liverpool have kind of been trying to break Forest down for that long, it was perfect because it meant that the longer they kept the game at 0-0, the more space they were getting in behind on that counter. I have to say, Gibbs-White the way he orchestrates play for Forest and like the one-touch football that he's capable of and the way he brings those wide forwards into the game, he's outstanding. I think he's definitely another one. Like Dave mentioned about Hudson-Odoi on the England doorstep. Gibbs White obviously was in the last squad. He's known well by Carsley. He's such a talented player. And the ability of those three, and Chris Wood even, has been far better than I think a lot of people thought he would be for Forest. I think he's been excellent. That's a really, really interesting front four. And the quality that Forest have at their disposal there, maybe we all kind of underrated, because I think we were saying we worried for Forest at the start of the season, and we were questioning whether Nuno was the right man for the job. And all right, let's not get carried away after 4 games. But this result wasn't just a smash and grab kind of win. It was a well thought out, methodical performance.
Yeah.
And that's what will give Forest fans a lot of encouragement. Not just wasn't this a great day out? It was a sign of good things, I think.
Well, you say it would give Forest fans a lot of encouragement, but they're notoriously quite pessimistic, aren't they? I think they've got every right to be the way things have panned out for them the last couple of seasons. They've been very lucky to stay in the division. But how do you think Forest fans will be feeling, Myles? Do you think they'll see this league position and this performance and being unbeaten right now and get quite optimistic about the season ahead? Or do you think this is just a kind of one of those early starts to the season where you just hope to come out of it with a decent amount of points, and they've actually done that so far?
Well, looking at it so far, there's definitely more than 3 teams worse than them. That already feels like a good platform for them. And I think when you're seeing the level of performance that you're getting out of some of those key players, if that can continue for the course of a season, there's no reason Forest can't kick on and find themselves mid-table by the end of the season. And that's what Forest want to do, isn't it? They want to build the platform to just keep getting better, marginal gains each season. And if they can hold on to some of those key players, then they have got a really good foundation. Because those forwards, other than Chris Wood, they're of a good age profile as well. They managed to hold on to Elanga over the summer when Newcastle seemed to be really heavily looking at him. Gibbs White they've held on to as well. So there's clearly an investment in the team there. And I think what was really encouraging was seeing Gibbs White's reaction at full time and how he embraced Nuno. They looked at each other like, you got done what I wanted done today. They looked like they really had a good connection there. And I don't think Forest fans can always say they've seen that of Nuno or any manager when there's been such a high turnover. So if they are going to get a bit of consistency in the league, this is how.
Well, consistency is what could dictate how even the next month or two goes, couldn't it, Dave, really? I mean, the next 2 games are Brighton away and Fulham at home for them, and that's just in September. So what could make them come unstuck, do you think, in those games if they're not careful?
I just think now they've found this balance. It seems in terms of obviously their defensive side of their game, they look like there's a bit more structure there. I think how they approach this game, I think he nailed it to a T in terms of he brought obviously Dominguez in there and Anderson, and they kind of filled the midfield so Liverpool couldn't play through them so easily. And I think now they've got that kind of depth in their squad. Obviously, they've brought these players in the summer, and actually, it's not just strength in numbers, but it's strength in quality as well. I think it will set them in good stead because I think they struggled a little bit last season. They had quite a few injuries to some key players, so I just think they're probably a little bit better set up to go the course of the season in terms of the number of the games.
Yeah, I mean, before we finish talking about this conversation of this game and how it went, and obviously we've got a lot of praise for Forest, Myles, but let's talk about Liverpool. Obviously, the first defeat for Arne Slot, and it's the first goal they've conceded, I think, as well in the Premier League so far. So, I mean, a brilliant start for them. I don't think any reason to kind of become panicking all of a sudden. But what will Slot have learned about his team from this quite frustrating game?
Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because they were on top for a lot of it, but I think they struggled to, like Dave says, dissect through the Forest midfield. And they've got some really talented players, and Szoboszlai started the season really well, and so is McAllister. But once McAllister came off, it looked like a lot of the threat had gone as well.
Yeah, true.
They moved Trent into the middle, and that obviously isn't quite as effective for him. He's not able to get down that right-hand side in the same way and kind of find those cross-channel balls. But I don't think he has too much to worry about. They've looked absolutely fantastic in the first 3 games. They've still got players to come in and settle. Chiesa's still not featured even. So, yeah, I think Slot will look at this as a frustrating day, but not really indicative of what he's seen so far.
No, well, the whole of Merseyside had a bit of a rough weekend, didn't they, generally, including the blue half, which we'll talk about now. And Aston Villa winning 3-2 against Everton, despite being 2-0 down. I'll stay with you, Myles, because it feels like the right place to start with this game. Being honest, going 2-0 down against Everton within like the first half an hour, in my opinion, two pretty poor goals to concede. I don't know how you felt watching it live, but did you expect a comeback? I mean, I know it's Everton, but did you look at that and go, this is going to be a rough day for Villa, or were you pretty optimistic still?
No, I thought we would win. Honestly, I'm not just saying that. As soon as even the second had gone in, I was frustrated with the defending, but I was confident we were going to win. I think at that sort of point, stat flashed up that Everton had played 2 passes in Villa's third, and Villa had played 50 in Everton's. Like we were on top for the entire game. There was never a moment where I thought they were the better side. We just weren't able to shut them out. And the first goal, I think, is really fortunate. For me, there's 2 fouls on Annan as he robs the ball from him. He's gone through him twice to get to the ball. All right, he could be stronger.
Yeah.
But he has to go through him. He has to go through him to get the first touch on the ball that he gets. And then the second one, he trips him before he gets to the ball. Like you see him take his ankle. So I thought that was silly. And then he should be closed down sooner. That's the only thing I will say.
Yeah,
Centre-back should step out and get to him. And you know what McNeil wants to do in that area. We're poor defensively from set pieces. We have been for a while now. We're really missing the kind of physical presence that Carlos or Mings can bring. But let's not forget, we've got some key absentees in the defensive areas. And I really wish we could get a clean sheet because let's not forget, we have had some pretty favourable fixtures to start the season with. Like, there's not many games that you would have wanted over Leicester, Everton, maybe even West Ham when we caught them. When things get tougher, that defence is going to be tested a lot more. And if we've not kept a clean sheet yet, that's frustrating. Having said that, the way they were playing on the ball was so good. I don't think there was a defence in the league that would have coped with them on that day. They were excellent. Watkins was back to his best for the majority of the game as well. He looked lethal. Rodgers was still causing all sorts of problems. Ramsey freed up so much space. And Luca Dean, this resurgence of Luca Dean over the last 2 years, what Emery's doing. Bear in mind, Emery signed 2 left-backs since he's been there to almost replace Luca Dean and can't, because he's just been so fantastic. I thought he was outstanding. So it's really good to see the players in Villa's squad really coming through and us not really missing some of the absentees.
Yeah, I think the fact that Watkins pulled a goal back, Dave, within the first half still was kind of, you could see the mindset switch from that point, couldn't you? Where they knew about Everton's frailties. And I think Everton knew as well that conceding a goal still so soon into the game was a dangerous territory for them. But credit to Villa and credit to Ollie Watkins as well, who really dragged his team back into it with 2 goals. And he's grown in stature, Ollie Watkins, hasn't he, with the team? And I think as long as Emery's been there, Villa have obviously grown and levelled up, and so has Watkins too. And he's at a brilliant level now, to a point where he puts in a performance like this, almost like the kind of standing captain in some ways. He really stepped up to drag Villa back into it, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he'll be breathing a sigh of relief. I think, obviously, has it been a couple of games without a goal? I think get him off the mark now, and like you say, it's those kind of goals, he snuffs out those chances so well. But I will say, I think there was some bad defending from both teams. I think arguably the last goal was the only goal which you've got to just put your hands up and say that was absolutely brilliant. Nobody could have maybe. Yeah. Just how far out it is. Like normally from distance, he's saying, okay, well, the midfielder should be closing him down. Defenders should be making it a little bit more difficult for him. But I don't think anybody anticipated Jhon Duran to shoot from that position.
True. It was such an entertaining game to watch for a neutral. I don't know how you felt as a Villa fan, Myles, but yeah, I mean, it had everything. It had some great goals, some mistakes, some good assists, some good finishes. And I think Watkins said after the game he was disappointed to not get a third and to get a hat-trick to his name. But I think if you look at the firepower that Villa are bringing off from the bench in Jhon Duran, not for the first time this season, obviously, quite literal firepower as well with the rocket of a shot. It's insane to see that depth of talent on the bench, isn't it? And it's hard not to get carried away, isn't it, with someone like Jhon Duran because of that raw talent he has. And we've talked about his mentality maybe being the only kind of downfall, but it's turning out to be one of his strengths as well. To have the confidence to do that kind of shot at that stage of the game is incredible.
Yeah, he's averaging a goal every 34 minutes, which is insane. Just outstanding. He's come off the bench to get the winner in every win Aston Villa have had this season. Like, that's the confidence he has. And he's saying things like he thinks he should be starting every game, or he thinks he's a better number 9 than Watkins. Like, he really believes in himself. And you have to believe yourself to hit that. But all in all, it was a great team goal as well. That's the irony. It's this moment of absolute magic from him.
Yeah.
On the back of a 26 pass move, where the whole team are just finding that slow build-up play that Emery loves, where he's waiting for that perfect moment to exploit. No one's expected it to be there, really. But I think the whole performance showed that. Like you mentioned, Watkins kind of leading from the front. And that's true because he's the one grabbing the goals and he clearly was up for it on the day. But I think there were some other performances that probably stood out to me more. Like Tielemans in the middle, again, is just showing that he is the perfect replacement for Douglas Luiz. Barkley came on in the second half. I thought he was excellent. Controlled the play really, really well. Onana in the first half, although we kind of criticise whether he could have been stronger in the first Everton goal, the pass he puts through to Luka Dean for our first goal gets us back in the game. And he looked like he was having a really good time of it before he had that injury. And it's just exciting to see that Villa have got that level of quality in the squad where you're struggling to pick out who the standout performer is. Because you have to bear in mind, it's a team that for years we were the Jack Grealish team, or then it started to feel like we were becoming the Ollie Watkins team a little bit. Whereas now, that's a really packed out squad. It's Unai Emery's team, and that's how it should be when you're competing at that sort of level. And yeah, I think obviously we've got Champions League coming this week for the first time, and the depth in our squad is the thing that I feel most encouraged by. We're still missing Cash, Carlos, Mings, Kamara. We had no Bailey this week. There's 5 excellent players that add loads to Villa's ability, really. And then pulling out 3 goals like that, and the way they played in the attacking positions, I just thought they were excellent.
Be honest, did you react the same as Emi Martinez when that goal went in? That winner.
Absolutely. When he had the ball at his feet, you could see. Yeah, when you saw him line up to shoot, I was going, "Don't shoot from there." Okay, fair enough. That was probably worth it. It was incredible, and I think the more Duran does that, the more he's kind of proven his worth to Aston Villa. Like Monchi said the other day that 40 clubs came in for him in the summer. Now,
wow.
I wonder if that's an exaggeration because I can't think of 40 clubs that could even afford that sort of move. But they were desperate to keep hold of him, apparently. I thought it was the opposite. I thought they were really trying to shift him. But if they've had that much level of interest in him, they could have sold it, if we're honest. We saw bids of good enough money come in for him. And now we're seeing why they want to hold on to him. And it's making the summer business look so much better. With him performing like that, Onana, I think, has been an absolute king in the middle. I think he's really dominated. And even Maatsen came off the bench. He created more chances in the game than any other player. That's so good to see.
Do you think it gets to a point where if he keeps putting these goals in, then you have to find a way to get him and Watkins in the team?
I don't know, because it happened with Bailey last season. When Bailey first went on that kind of hot streak, it was off the bench where he was coming on and just having such an impact. And thankfully, he continued that when he started getting regular starts for the team as well. But when you've got that sort of weapon off the bench where he kind of comes on, he is quite chaotic. Like, he's not someone that wants to play the system, really. And that's why I think Emery is more reluctant to give him 90 minutes more often. But he has it in his locker to upset teams and really go and bully defenders. And that's such a good weapon late in a game that I'm happy seeing him be that sub as long as he's happy to do it. Because playing him with Watkins changes our entire system. And I'm not sure I want to see that happen.
Well, it's the kind of characteristics you want in a super sub, especially a forward, isn't it? To observe the game and see where he could fit in, come straight on and make an impact. And he's done that, 3 times now so far this season. I say so far because I don't think it'll be the last time he does it either.
Did you see what he said in our tunnel cam afterwards? He walks back through the tunnel at Villa Park and he goes, "Well, this is normal." That was his reaction to it. That he knows it's becoming. He's just scored the goal of the season. He's like, "Yeah, it's normal. Don't worry about it. I do this every day."
Well, before we go on to Everton and Dave's opinion on that performance, I'll stay on you, Myles, and talk about something we haven't discussed yet in any detail. And that's the Champions League pricing structure for Villa. Obviously, a massive reason to come back to Villa Park is to watch them play Champions League football in such a stage. They deserve to be there. But the pricing has made a lot of fans understandably angry, hasn't it? How are you feeling about it, man?
Yeah. I've not heard anything that justifies it yet. And there are plenty of people that try, and there are people that say, "Oh, you were annoyed that we couldn't sign someone at the end of the window. Well, this is how we make more money, and you've got to be on board with the commercial product." It's nonsense. It's utter nonsense. This isn't the thing that generates our revenue. We need to be far more aware of where you can actually gain money in football without exploiting your fan base. And there are clubs that are doing it so much better. Like you look at Celtic's pricing. You can get a ticket for basically £45 a game if you get one of their bundles, and we're paying 95.
Yeah, it's mad.
There's no way you can possibly justify that. Villa Park is a beautiful age stadium, but it's not perfect. So paying that kind of money for any kind of game there it's just nonsense. And the sad thing is you bent over a barrel because Villa fans are desperate to get back to this level and they want to see it. And you'd love to see some sort of protest, but then who does that hurt? It just hurts the fans. They then don't get to experience this amazing thing that we've achieved. And you've priced it at a point that is so ridiculous that people are having to make really difficult decisions over whether they go to all four or one or whether they can go at all. But they're desperate to do it still, even though they're angry about it. And I find that quite distasteful. I think the fact there was so much fan complaint and Chris Heck kind of came out with this statement of, well, look, this is what we need to do to make money. That's just rubbish. It's just utter rubbish. Like negotiate sponsorship deals better. Yeah, it's silly. Like you can't tell me that we made 60 million off DRB, but we need to charge fans £95 to hit PSR. That's just nuts. Like we're in a world where there's a cap from UEFA on the away tickets that will mean that the Celtic fans will get to that game cheaper than a Villa fan will. Mm-hmm. Like that's mental. I don't know. It feels really, really a shame because everything on the pitch is going so well, and it feels like there's a bit of I can hide behind Unai Emery, I can hide behind the performances, and I can do what I want on the commercial side of things from Chris Heck, and it's not really what Villa fans want to see.
No, well, Villa fans will pay it though because it's such a big moment for them going back into the Champions League. But Dave, what about Everton fans? Will they be wanting to pay ticket prices again this season, especially when they move to their new stadium after 4 defeats to start this season? Not just 4 defeats, but 2 spectacular collapses in the last couple of games as well. What do Everton have to do to get some kind of footing on this season, man?
I think the worrying thing for me is defensively, they're all over the show. And we said that last week, didn't we? A couple of weeks back, before the international break, is they're playing with Ashley Young at right back, obviously Mikolenko at left back, who actually had quite a good season last year. And then you got Tarkowski and Michael Keane in there who just don't look like they know each other's game, or they just don't know how to set up back there. Because you look at every single, particularly the first 2 goals, Villa's first 2 goals. I mean, it's the organiser. There's no organisation whatsoever, and I don't understand how they didn't manage to get another centre back in. Now, obviously,
they did.
They've got no money though. That's the thing.
No, they brought Jake O'Brien in. And then they bring him on the 64th minute and play James Garner at right back for the majority of the game. Like they've got another defender on the bench who's better than both of their starting centre backs, and they're not playing him. It's weird.
And again, obviously, another right back who's obviously Seamus Coleman. I think he's injured, isn't he, at the minute?
Yeah.
But they've got a lot of key players in there who are aging. They're in age now where really they're probably their Premier League careers is on the downward spiral. You could probably argue, should Ashley Young still be playing in the Premier League? Probably not. So there's some concerns there for me, I think. But I think there's some positives, believe it or not. I do think
that performance.
Yeah, I think they're creating opportunities. You look at Calvert-Lewin.
True, yeah. I think
scored in his last couple of games as well.
They did almost take advantage of Villa's high line a couple of times, didn't they, to be fair? If it wasn't for Calvert-Lewin's wastefulness, they might have been in and got another goal.
Yeah, obviously, he had a great opportunity at the end of the game, didn't he? Which he probably should have buried. He was a little bit unlucky, but if they can somehow close the back door and keep on scoring goals, then it's all of a sudden, though, it's a massive uphill task.
Yeah.
4 games in, you're at the bottom of the league.
Do you know what's funny? He had that moment where he went 1-on-1, where you're talking about him beating the high line, and I knew he wasn't going to score. And I'll tell you why, because he did exactly the same thing against us last year. But last year he shot early and Martinez saved it. So this time, you could see it running through his head. He remembered it. You could see it. As soon as he was going through, I thought he's going to try and round him. He doesn't want to shoot. And he took too long over it. And a confident Calvert-Lewin, prime Calvert-Lewin, buries that. He does. That's why I look at it and I go, I don't think I can take any heart from it. If he can't score a free header from a set piece, I'd be worried. So he gets that, fine. But I don't really want to give him too much credit for that. I think we were just really poor at defending. I'd be really worried if I was an Everton fan. I'd be really, really worried.
Man United beat Southampton 3-0 in a game that we thought might have been a potential banana skin, especially after the game against Liverpool, Dave, where we weren't very optimistic at all about this game, purely because the kind of feeling that leaves fans with a defeat against your biggest rivals that was so comprehensive. And the international break almost did us a favour, didn't it? Erik ten Hag had that breathing space, reevaluated his starting 11, got Christian Eriksen in there instead of Casemiro, who made a big difference. But an all-round much better performance for United, albeit against quite a poor Southampton side, wouldn't you say?
I didn't feel that for the first half an hour of the game, I must say.
I was going to say that.
I thought we looked really poor. And it took a penalty save from Andre and Arne to really kind of turn the momentum on its head.
Yeah.
And I thought there were probably a couple of players who played, I thought, quite well for that first half an hour, but everybody was turning. It was 5 out of 10 pretty much from everyone on the pitch, and that was a bit of a worry at the time. But I think for the last hour of the game, I thought we actually looked quite good. I don't know how much you can take from it, because this is probably going to be, with all due respect to Southampton, this is probably going to be our easiest away game of the season, and we're not particularly great away from home.
Yeah.
But I think there were plenty of positive performances from a number of players. I thought Amad Diallo, I think that's probably the best game he's had in a United shirt. You look at, obviously, De Ligt. I think after the international break and the performances he had for the Netherlands, to come back and kind of put that performance in, I think that speaks volumes of the player and the sort of character he's got. And I think he looks like he's going to be a real leader for us as well, which is really good. And we scored 3 goals for the first time.
Yeah.
What I can remember is we just can't put teams away. It's been like that for a long time, to be honest. I think we've not been clinical, and all of a sudden there's some positivity around the club. And the thing is, there's been so many points, hasn't there, where we're looking to turn the corner, and it's just having that consistency or getting a string of results together. It's something that we've really struggled to do over the last couple of years for a long time, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing for consistency. It's carrying that into the next game and the next game. And we haven't got a clean run of Premier League games because of League Cup and Europa League games sandwiched in the middle of them. But the next games for United, Miles, will be Palace away and then obviously Tottenham as well. So 2 quite difficult games. So based on this performance, it's great to see some of that positivity with a few players that really needed a boost. De Ligt, like you say, being one. Rashford needed a goal too. But what do they need to do, United, to stay consistent now? I mean, what is it about this team you think worked, and what do you think needs tweaking for those coming games?
Yeah, you mentioned Eriksen. I thought he gave you a lot more control in the middle than I've seen United have so far this season. That was excellent. I think the way he receives the ball from the back line just takes a lot of pressure off, where you were kind of making mistakes earlier. Like you think about Casemiro and how easily he was pounced on in the Liverpool game. Eriksen kind of brings a more confident approach, and you can see the rest of the team benefit from that as well. And I think Dave's right. Amad, it was the best I've seen him for Man United. I thought he was really, really good. I don't think it was quite as comfortable as maybe you gave him credit for there, Mike. I agree with Dave. First half hour, I was watching that going, here we go again. And if that penalty had gone in, it could be a completely different afternoon. But the good thing is the heads didn't drop, and it would be really easy to see that happen when you've kind of had the start you have. And they kept going. It was quite a professional performance. I think they looked really good on the counter, and it was obvious that was going to be an avenue for them, because Southampton love trying to hold on to the ball for as much as they can. So seeing someone like Rashford kind of get back on the score sheet, that's what's going to bring United success going forward. If those players that we have come to know and expect so much of start stepping up to the plate and delivering to what we know they're capable of. So Rashford's performance is a big one for me. Eriksen, obviously, you're not expecting him to play 90 minutes every week, but if Agate can come in and kind of rotate the minutes through the 3 of them, Eriksen, Casemiro, and Agate, that's some good depth there, really. I'd just be worried by the fact you still ended the game with a back 3 of Johnny Evans, Harry Maguire, and Casemiro, didn't you?
I thought we were about to set a record of replacing the whole back line. I think we were replacing 3 of our defenders.
Do you know what I want to know? What happens to Luke Shaw when he's fit, by the way? Because Mazraoui's been fantastic. I think he looks really, really good.
His link up down that side has been great as well. Like, he gets himself quite high up the pitch, and he's got this football brain. He anticipates stuff really well, and you can see passes really well. And what a bargain signing he's proven to be so far. I know it's quite early days, but I'm really pleased with what he's brought. But you're right, where does Luke Shaw fit in, Dave, with him in the team? Yeah.
It's going to be a battle, isn't it, between Dallo and Mazraoui for the right back position, you'd imagine. And however,
I think
that's assuming that Luke Shaw is going to come back full fitness, because he's just had he's had a torrid time, hasn't he? Over the last 18 months, he's just not been able to stay fit. So I think it'd be really harsh on to take either Dallo or Mazraoui out of the team just to bring him back in. I think he's got to be a measured sort of introduction back into the team if we're going to bring Luke Shaw back in, because clearly I don't know what to make of him. He's probably one big injury away from not being at the club much longer, and that's really sad to say.
Yeah, it's not been quite the same play for the last year, has he? But I'll tell you one play that really gets better every time I see him, and that's Joshua Zirkzee. I think his link-up play has really been important for United going forward, and I think it's been important for Rashford still being a part of the team, because I think having Rashford in the team after his last few performances has been a bit of a gamble, especially when you've got Garnacho on the bench waiting in the wings and obviously having an impact every time he comes on. But I think the reason he's being given that kind of running the team still is because Zirkzee just links so well with everyone around him, doesn't he? Don't you think, Myles?
I do. He's another one that I wonder where he fits in when Højlund's back as well. So it's good that you've kind of got those options now, because that's something United have lacked for a while. You were kind of looking to Martial to kind of keep fit to come off the bench, and that wasn't really working. So it's good that you'll have those sort of two to rotate between. I think he could have done with getting a goal in this game. I think it was there for him to get, and he had a couple of chances where I thought it would have been good for his confidence to see him get his second of the season as well. And then it becomes a bit of a pattern. But yeah, generally, his link-up play is excellent. He holds the ball up really confidently. He's willing to take defenders on, which you're not really used to seeing in a player of his sort of stature. Like he's good with the ball at his feet, isn't he? So yeah, it gives United a good option, definitely.
I was saying to one of my friends, he reminds me a little bit of a Bobby Firmino kind of player.
Interesting.
In that he picks up those little holes, he's able to make himself available really well, and he ties things together so neatly across that front line. I just thought it'd be interesting to see, obviously, like you say, if when Højlund comes back, because I think he's played off of the left on a few occasions, I think for Bologna, which I think he could do, and it's like you say, it's another option which we need. And it's quite encouraging, actually, that we were able to score the goals we did. Even though Bruno Fernandes got an assist, I thought he was the worst player on our team.
Yeah, he wasn't good. He was trying too hard. He had one of those Bruno days where he thinks he's just going to do everything on his own and just nothing was coming off for him. I clocked that as well. Yeah,
an interesting match to analyse for United fans, wasn't it? Especially, obviously, there was a red card through in there for good measure as well. So Southampton not the
shocking.
Best. Yeah, the red card was dangerous, wasn't it? It was just flat out awful challenge.
It's funny because we were talking about it at the time, weren't we, in the group chat? And when we both watched it live, we were going, "What the heck's happened there? Why has he been sent off?" Watch one replay of it, was like, flipping heck, man! He's trying to kill him.
Sickening, yeah. But moving on from United, we're going to go to an interesting matchup between Crystal Palace and Leicester, which finished 2-2, and it was a really entertaining game between two teams that we didn't anticipate being particularly close in the table, but so far they're actually almost identical records so far after this draw. So I want to analyse both teams' starts to the season so far, and both being spearheaded by strikers with different backgrounds. So Jamie Vardy's still doing it for Leicester, still rubbing it in for opposition fans. And Jean-Philippe Mateta's continuing his fantastic 2024, because since January, he's just been one of the most informed strikers in the Premier League. Of course, taking that to the Olympics as well, he did really well there. So, yeah, an interesting matchup. Where do you see Crystal Palace at the minute, Myles? Because we had high hopes for them doing well. Obviously, they've only got 2 points on the board after 4 games. What's been their struggle, do you think, so far?
I think it just takes time, doesn't it? I think we've got to remember it's still a new manager with a lot of transitions in the team as well. Like that starting 11's got a lot of new faces in there. Like Lacroix came in this week. Yeah. Nketiah, who I actually thought looked really, really good. And I think that has some really good potential for Palace to see him and Mateta link up, because he's not quite the kind of fox in the box player he looked like he was at Arsenal. He was picking the ball up a lot deeper. He was running at players, and he might try and fulfill what Elise was kind of bringing in the front three before, which would be really interesting to see. But yeah, they've had a lot of change in the last 6 months, 6 to 12 months, haven't they, Palace? I think it's taken time for it to just click and get right, because Glasner's such a technical coach that getting those fine details across to a new group of players is going to take a bit of work. And I still think there's encouraging signs for them. I'd be more enthused by Palace right now than a lot of other clubs in that sort of position in the table. Although they're not getting the results yet, you can see what they're trying to do, and it will come off. I'm quite confident of that. There's some real quality there.
Yeah, I say that Mateta's been in good form this year, but this season he hasn't scored yet. I think that's probably part of Palace's problem as well, is that they struggle to kind of score many goals. And I think their first goal of the season that they scored was an own goal as well. So, it's been a weird one. They've obviously lost an important outlet there, haven't they, in Elise not being there. But do you think they've got what it takes, Dave, to actually put the ball in the back of the net? Because it feels like they're creating chances. They're just not particularly clinical yet.
First of all, I had Mateta in my fantasy team, and I took him out last week. So that's down.
Mate, before you move on from that, I'll double that. I brought Salah in this week after he'd scored 3 games in a row, and then I had Watkins as my captain and Haaland as my vice. And then I thought, actually, Watkins might not even start. He picked up a knock before the international break, and Haaland was 75% chance. So who did I make captain? Salah, fantastic. Watch Watkins and Haaland score 2 each, and Salah draw a blank. This is why I hate Liverpool.
That's why I hate fantasy league, to be fair, mate.
I know, it killed me. Sorry, Dave. Mateta.
Yeah, it has been a bit of a slow start for them, to be honest. I think Eze, I think he's had a bit of a slow start. I've sort of watched him in the international break. I didn't think he played the best for England either, to be honest. But I think it's going to take a while for him to get up and running. But Mateta, that will do him wonders, I think, because if you looked at his streak that he had the back end of last season, it was in such a rich vein of form.
Yeah, I
think this will get him up and running and give him that sort of bit of confidence he probably needs. But it'll be really fascinating to see how that Nketiah operates on that right hand side, and whether him and Eze actually look to kind of rotate and switch flanks, because I don't know. I don't know if that will suit him.
To wrap up this conversation anyway, we'll just talk about Leicester quickly. Jamie Vardy, obviously still quite a clutch player for Leicester, isn't he? But it's not enough to keep them up, I don't think. They're not really blowing teams away at the minute. In fact, struggling to 2 points. They've been quite lucky to get those, really, haven't they, Myles?
Yeah, I think it was interesting to see that he changed the system a little bit, Cooper, this game. He brought Mavadini back in, who had a good impact on it, but not holding on to the result, that's going to really cost them, isn't it? And Cooper looks a frustrated figure already. He's gone back at the refs again after this one, saying that he wants to see the images of the offside, which... did he have a point over that?
No.
It's weird to question an offside to me these days.
Yeah, I mean, the replays are there for a reason, because you try and see exactly if it is on or off, and I don't think there's any room for manoeuvre there, is there? I thought it was pretty clear.
The angle was weird that they saw, but you just got to trust that that's offside. And I think jump into that rather than thinking about the fact that Conor Cody just completely lost his head and just doesn't look up to the Premier League standard anymore. That was more worrying for me. Let's
finish the podcast then on the North London derby quickly. Obviously, a bit of an ill-tempered game, Dave, as we always expect with these fixtures, don't we? But Arsenal prevailed with a Gabriel goal. I think deserved on the balance of play, wasn't it? It was a nitty-gritty game, loads of yellow cards, but Arsenal still at the top of the table near Man City, keeping pace. And they'll be pleased with that, won't they, that win?
Majorly pleased. I think it's becoming a bit of a happy hunting ground for Arsenal. I think that's I think they've won the last 3 encounters with Spurs, away at Spurs. So, great for them. It had a similar sort of feel to some of the big games they've had of late, I think, over the last season or two, in where they've probably not played their best. I thought the first half was, really easy watch, a lot better than the second half. Both teams going to have a lot of tackles and 7 yellow cards, which it must be a record, the amount of yellows that have been given this weekend.
Yeah,
14, didn't we, in the Chelsea performance?
Crazy.
7 in the first half of this first half. But I just think Gabriel, and if you look at, I think he scored more goals in this since he arrived, I think he scored 15 goals for Arsenal.
That's a lot, isn't it?
Scored, yeah. And
it was pretty written though, wasn't it?
They've been mentioning obviously the amount of work they've done with the set piece coach. I mean, it's clearly done wonders because you look at the amount of set piece goals they've scored over the last couple of years. But it was a really timely victory for Arsenal, obviously, with the on the back of the Brighton game and having so many players missing, the likes of Declan Rice. I think this is a great victory for them and ahead of a massive game next Sunday.
Yeah, well, it was one of those games that could always go either way, isn't it? In North London derby, it takes moments to win it. Do you think, Myles, that Jurien Timber was maybe lucky to stay on the pitch? He got a yellow card for his challenge, didn't he? On was it Pedro Porro? But I thought that was one of those ones that could have been given on a different day.
You've seen him given. Yeah. And what's funny is the referee blew the whistle and Timber kept running with the ball, so he's lucky he didn't get booked a second time for kicking the ball away.
True.
I only winded him up because I know that they're still a bit bitter for some of them. That, and then he grabs hold of Vicario as well, so maybe 3 yellows. No, I think, you've seen him given. You saw Curtis Jones kind of suffer that red card last year for a really similar challenge where he tries to put his foot on top of the ball and goes over it in the process. So he's not in control of it in the moment. It feels like he takes Porro out. And you say that those games hang on moments. Well, there's a big one. But it's gone in Arsenal's favour this week. It didn't go in their favour last week. It all levels out over the course of a season. It's just Spurs have got to address the fact they can't defend set pieces at some point, haven't they? Because I saw something earlier about they were top of the league for their first 10 games. And then if you put together every result they've had since, they're about 10th or 9th. They're not in good form at all.
I think the worrying thing for me
slide.
I think the worrying thing for me is they never really look like scoring in this game. I just think they looked like they really lacked that clinical edge to their game. The Son was looked off it. Madison he's not starting the season very well at all, to be honest. No. It's a bit worrying for them, really, to be honest. When you look at the kind of investment they've made in those areas, I think Solanke struggled a little bit.
Yeah, it's got to click at some point, hasn't it? But Arsenal prevailed on this occasion, which is massive for them, like you say. And a big week, big fortnight of football ahead. There's a lot of teams playing in the League Cup, I think, starting, isn't it? And European games as well.
Come on. Champions League starts this week, mate. Never mind the League Cup. Villa have got young boys.
I think the point I was trying to make is that there's a lot of football being played, and that's the whole other conversation. But the League Cup's one of those ones you could probably just sack off, really, isn't it? But Champions League football returning to Villa Park is huge. So, loads to talk about, I think, in the coming pod. So please do stay tuned. Please do hit like, subscribe, follow on any platform you're watching or listening to us on, because it makes such a huge difference to our growth. Obviously, we're now part of the Sports Social Podcast Network as well. So, hit like for us on there. And, be hoping to hear from you on our socials. But until next time we get together, guys, it's been great to have us all back together. It's been a while since the three of us have been on the pod. But, wicked to see you both. Thanks for joining me and see you soon.
Pleasure. See you next week.